All right, so we're diving into a Hollywood lawsuit today, and it's got everyone talking accusations and leaked footage. We're talking serious money at stake.
I think what's really got the public's attention, though, is how this case just brings to light these tricky issues that go way beyond these two people. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And for you, this deep dive is going to be really interesting because of the research you've already done on power dynamics, especially in entertainment.
Oh, definitely. And having those sources to refer to is going to be super helpful as we break this all down.
So for anyone just tuning in, the key players are Blake Lively, who you probably know from all her acting, and Justin Baldoni, who directed and starred in the film at the center of this whole thing. It ends with us.
Now, this film is based on a popular novel and already deals with some intense themes of domestic abuse, which makes these allegations even more sensitive, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Lively's lawsuit filed December 20th alleges that Baldoni just crossed the line during the filming of a particular scene. It was a slow dance between their characters.
So according to the lawsuit, Baldoni's actions went beyond what was professionally acceptable. She claims he touched her inappropriately, like dragging his lips from her ear down her neck, telling her she smelled good, and just generally making her feel really uncomfortable.
And when Lively objected, the lawsuit states that Baldoni responded with something that kind of adds another layer to all of this. He allegedly said, "I'm not even attracted to you."
If that's true, it really raises questions about his understanding of professional boundaries and what's appropriate on a set.
Now, Baldoni denies these accusations very strongly. His side claims his actions were all part of acting out the scene as it was directed.
And in support of his claims, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, did something pretty unusual. He released unedited footage of the scene straight to the media. It was like a bombshell just dropped.
So that footage has become like the centerpiece of this whole case, with both sides interpreting it in completely opposite ways.
Lively's team argues that the footage actually supports her claims and points to moments where she seems visibly uncomfortable. They emphasize how she leans away from Baldoni and repeatedly asks to focus on the dialogue rather than the physical aspects of the scene. She even makes a joke about getting spray tan on him.
Interesting, almost like she's trying to create some distance.
Exactly. But Baldoni's team insists that the footage proves Lively's claims are totally false. And they point to the joking back and forth between them and say the whole scene just needs to be viewed within the professional context of filming.
They argue that Baldoni's comment about Lively smelling good was directly related to her mentioning her spray tan earlier, and that his actions were just totally in line with the romantic nature of the scene, you know?
This clashing interpretation of the footage just shows the challenge of figuring out the truth in these he said, she said situations, especially when you're dealing with subjective experiences and perceptions.
It's a battle of narratives, isn't it? With each side presenting evidence that supports their version of events, leaving the public and potentially a jury to decide who to believe.
And this whole situation with the leaked footage, instead of making things clearer, has probably just fueled the media frenzy around the case.
And then, to make matters even more complicated, Lively tried to get a gag order against Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman.
So she essentially wanted to stop him from making any more public statements that could influence a jury's opinion. It shows how high the stakes are in this case.
But Baldoni's team didn't back down. They accused Lively of using legal tactics for strategic advantage and claiming that her public accusations have caused him serious financial harm.
And that's when Baldoni dropped his own bombshell, a $400 million lawsuit against Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds.
Wow, that's a massive amount of money. It highlights just how much is on the line for both sides in this battle.
It really does. And it's important to point out that Baldoni's lawsuit goes beyond just the accusations of sexual harassment. He also claims defamation and something called tortious interference.
Now, I know you've looked into this kind of legal language before. Could you break that down for us? What does that actually mean in this context?
Essentially, Baldoni's saying that Lively's actions not only damaged his reputation, but also interfered with his professional relationships and his potential future earnings. It adds another layer of legal complexity to the whole situation, you know?
So we're dealing with accusations and denials and leaked footage and now dueling lawsuits. It's a lot to unpack. And one of the things you highlighted in your notes was this concept of the Rashomon effect. I think it's really relevant here.
It definitely is. The Rashomon effect refers to this idea that the same event can be perceived and remembered in completely different ways by different people, like their own individual perspectives, biases, and even their memories can shape how they interpret what happened.
Like that famous Japanese film, right, where The same crime is described from like multiple viewpoints, and each version seems believable, but also contradicts the others.
Exactly. Makes you wonder what really happened and realize that truth can be subjective and elusive. And in this case, you have Lively claiming that she felt uncomfortable and violated by Baldoni's actions during that scene.
While Baldoni insists that everything was professional and within the context of the directed scene.
Right, and they both have their own interpretations of that leaked footage, which just adds more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it's a tangled web, isn't it? I mean, even if we set aside the whole question of like who is telling the truth, there's another layer to this whole situation that I think is crucial to understanding what happened, and that's the power dynamics at play.
Absolutely, and this is something you were particularly interested in exploring based on your initial research. This fact that Baldoni wasn't just Lively's co-star, he was also the director and head of the studio producing the film that automatically puts him in a position of authority.
Right, and that power imbalance can create a situation where someone might feel pressured to go along with things that they're not comfortable with, even if there are no direct threats or any overt coercion, you know?
It's about the subtle ways that power can influence interactions and make it really hard for someone to speak up or enforce their boundaries.
You know, it reminds me of some of the studies you shared about how people in more subordinate positions often hesitate to report misconduct because they fear retaliation or just not being believed.
That's a really important point. The research does show that power dynamics can have a chilling effect on reporting, especially in workplaces with like a strong hierarchy.
So even if we accept Baldoni's claim that his actions were all just part of acting out the scene, we can't just ignore that his position of power could have influenced how Lively felt and reacted in that situation.
Exactly. It's not about assuming guilt or innocence, but acknowledging that those power dynamics always exist and can significantly impact how people perceive and respond to events.
This whole case also raises these really important questions about consent, particularly on film sets. How can we ensure that everyone involved in a scene, especially one involving physical intimacy, feels safe and respected?
That's where the role of intimacy coordinators is becoming more and more vital in the industry. These are professionals who help choreograph these intimate scenes and ensure clear communication and consent between the actors, and they advocate for the actors' well-being throughout the process.
So it sounds like they act as a sort of intermediary, making sure everyone's on the same page and that boundaries are respected.
Exactly. They help to create this safer environment for actors to engage in these very sensitive scenes.
But even with intimacy coordinators involved, it's clear that open dialogue, mutual respect, and a genuine willingness to listen to each other's concerns are just crucial.
Absolutely. It's about fostering a culture on set where everyone feels comfortable voicing their discomfort or just setting those boundaries without fearing any negative consequences.
It's about creating this atmosphere of trust and understanding where everyone feels empowered to speak up.
Exactly. And this case highlights the importance of that, regardless of what the outcome of the legal proceedings are.
You're right, because at the end of the day, this case isn't just about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. It's a reflection of broader societal issues and a call to action for all of us.
It's a reminder that we need to keep having these difficult conversations about power and consent and respect, both within the entertainment industry and in every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely, and I think it's crucial to remember that cases like this can be incredibly challenging for everyone involved. It's not just about determining who's right and who's wrong.
It's about recognizing the complexities of human interactions and the potential for misunderstanding, and the fact that different people can have genuinely different perceptions of the same event.
And it's about having empathy for both the accuser and the accused, while also acknowledging the systemic issues that can contribute to these kinds of situations.
Right, we can't lose sight of the bigger picture even as we grapple with the specifics of this case.
So where does that leave us? With a whole lot of questions, that's for sure. We've explored the accusations, the conflicting accounts, the leaked footage, the legal battles, but the fundamental question remains, will we ever know the full truth in this case?
And perhaps even more importantly, what can we learn from this situation to prevent similar situations from happening in the future?
That's the real takeaway here. It's about taking this case as like a starting point for these broader conversations and actions.
It's about using it as a catalyst for change, both within ourselves and within the systems that we're a part of.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question to ponder. Given everything we've talked about, the conflicting accounts, that unedited footage, those power dynamics at play, whose version of events are you more inclined to believe and why?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think it's important to acknowledge that there isn't an easy answer. It's not about like rushing to judgment or taking sides.
Right. It's about carefully considering all the information and recognizing just how complex these situations can be, and acknowledging that our own perspectives and experiences shape how we interpret these events.
And for you specifically, having those sources that you provided really adds another layer to this. How has what you've read kind of influenced your own view of this case?
It's a really good point because it's kind of impossible to completely detach ourselves from our pre-existing knowledge and beliefs. This deep dive has definitely challenged me to examine my own assumptions about power and consent and how those dynamics play out in Hollywood and, beyond.
Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway here. This case isn't just about a legal battle. It's a catalyst for broader reflection and a broader conversation.
Yeah, it's about taking a step back and just asking ourselves some tough questions. What do we believe and why? How do our own experiences influence how we judge things? And what can we actually do to contribute to a culture where everyone feels safe and respected and empowered to speak up?
Those are questions we all need to grapple with, not just in relation to this case, but just in our daily lives.
This deep dive has been quite a journey. We explored those accusations and the denials, the legal maneuvering, and the intense media scrutiny. But I think the most important thing we can do now is take what we've learned and just apply it to our own understanding of the world.
Exactly. And I really encourage you to keep exploring this case. Seek out different perspectives and continue to form your own conclusions based on the evidence and your own critical thinking.
Remember, there's always more to learn, and every story has multiple sides.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the complexities of Hollywood and power and the search for truth.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.